What if everything you've been told about carbs is only half the truth? What if the real reason you're not losing fat or has nothing to do with bread, rice, or even sugar alone, but something happening deep inside your body every single day? Because here's the truth most people never hear. Carbs are not the enemy. Your hormones are. More specifically, insulin. Insulin is not bad, it's not evil. In fact, it's essential for survival. Every time you eat, especially carbohydrates, your body releases insulin to help move glucose from your bloodstream into your cells. Please subscribe to the channel so you can receive upcoming videos as soon as they're released. Your support really helps us keep creating valuable content for you. Carbs are not the real reason you're gaining fat, and that truth alone has confused millions of people who have been told for decades that bread, rice, and sugar are the villains destroying their health. Yet despite cutting carbs, skipping meals, and pushing through exhausting workouts, the scale refuses to move, the mirror refuses to change, and the frustration keeps building because deep down it feels like your body is working against you, not with you. And the real reason lies in a powerful hormone silently controlling your metabolism every single second: insulin. Insulin is not the enemy you've been taught to fear. It is a life-saving hormone that keeps your blood sugar from reaching dangerous levels. But like many things in biology, its power becomes dangerous when it is constantly elevated, because insulin doesn't just manage sugar. It controls whether your body stores fat or burns it. And when insulin is high, your body is locked into storage mode, no matter how hard you try to lose weight. Imagine trying to burn fat while your body is being repeatedly told to store everything you eat. That's exactly what happens when insulin stays elevated throughout the day. And in today's world of constant eating, processed foods, and hidden sugars, that's exactly what most people are experiencing without even realizing it. Every time you eat, insulin rises. That's normal. But what's not normal is eating every 2 to 3 hours, snacking late into the night, and consuming foods that spike insulin rapidly, because this creates a state where insulin never gets a chance to fall. And without that drop, your body never switches into fat burning mode. It stays trapped, storing energy instead of using it. This is why someone can eat what they believe is a healthy diet, count every calorie, and still struggle with stubborn fat, because the body is not a simple math equation. It is a complex hormonal system, and insulin is the switch that determines whether fat is burned or stored. Research has shown that chronically elevated insulin levels are directly linked to weight gain, metabolic dysfunction, and conditions like insulin resistance, where the body stops responding properly to insulin, forcing it to produce even more, creating a vicious cycle that traps people in fat storage mode no matter how hard they try to escape it. And here's the shocking part. You don't have to be eating junk food to trigger this cycle. Even frequent consumption of healthy snacks like granola bars, fruit juices, or low-fat packaged foods can keep insulin elevated all day long, because it's not just what you eat, it's how often you eat that matters just as much. Think about this. Your body is designed to switch between using sugar and fat as fuel, a system known as metabolic flexibility. But when insulin is constantly high, that flexibility disappears, and your body becomes dependent on sugar, constantly craving more, constantly feeling hungry, constantly searching for the next meal, not because you lack willpower, but because your hormones are driving those cravings. This is why so many people feel like they are addicted to food, why they feel energy crashes after meals, why they struggle with late-night cravings, because their insulin levels are keeping them locked in a cycle of burning sugar instead of fat. And until that cycle is broken, fat loss remains out of reach. But here's where the story changes. Because when insulin finally drops, everything changes. When insulin levels fall low enough, your body unlocks access to stored fat, it begins to burn fat for energy, your hunger stabilizes, your energy becomes steady, and your metabolism starts working the way it was always designed to. And this is not a theory, it's a biological fact supported by decades of research in metabolic science. This is why approaches like intermittent fasting have gained so much attention, not because they are magic, but because they create periods where insulin can finally fall, giving your body the opportunity to switch into fat burning mode, something that constant eating simply does not allow. And it's also why the type of food you eat matters, because highly processed carbohydrates cause rapid spikes in insulin, followed by crashes that drive hunger and cravings, while whole, unprocessed foods create a slower, more controlled insulin response, allowing your body to maintain balance instead of chaos. But the real transformation happens when you combine both strategies, when you reduce constant eating and choose foods that support stable insulin levels, because this is when your body begins to heal, when insulin sensitivity improves, when fat burning becomes efficient again, and when weight loss stops feeling like a constant battle. This is the moment where everything starts to make sense, where you realize it was never about blaming carbs entirely. It was about understanding how your body responds to them, how insulin reacts, and how your daily habits either keep you trapped in fat storage or allow you to break free. Because the truth is, carbs can exist in a healthy lifestyle, but only when your metabolism is flexible enough to handle them, only when insulin is not constantly elevated, only when your body has regained the ability to switch between fuels efficiently. And that is something most people have lost without even realizing it. So, if you've been struggling, if you've been doing everything right and still not seeing results, it's time to stop blaming yourself, because this is not a failure of discipline. It's a misunderstanding of biology. And once you understand insulin, you gain control over the process in a way that changes everything. You stop chasing extreme diets, you stop fearing every carb, and you start focusing on what truly matters, keeping insulin low enough, long enough to allow your body to do what it was designed to do: burn fat. Because in the end, fat loss is not about punishing your body, it's about working with it, understanding the signals it responds to, and creating the conditions where those signals support your goals instead of sabotaging them. Carbs are not the problem. They never were. The real problem is a body that is constantly being told to store, never given the chance to burn. And once you change that signal, once you lower insulin and allow your metabolism to shift, you don't just lose fat. You reclaim control over your health, your energy, and your life. The biggest lie you've been told about fat loss isn't that you're eating too much. It's that eating more often will somehow speed up your metabolism, that constant snacking is healthy, that grazing all day keeps your energy stable, because the truth is far more dangerous than that. The real problem is not overeating, it's overstimulating insulin, and that silent hormonal storm is what's keeping your body trapped in fat storage mode. Every time you eat, your body releases insulin, and that's normal, that's survival. But what's not normal is triggering that response again and again and again from morning until midnight. Because in today's world, food is everywhere, snacks are constant, and the idea of never being hungry has become the goal, when in reality, that constant feeding is the very thing blocking fat loss. Think about the modern eating pattern: breakfast, mid-morning snack, lunch, afternoon snack, evening tea, dinner, and then something sweet at night. And every one of those moments sends a signal to your body, not to burn fat, but to store energy, because insulin rises every single time. And when insulin stays elevated, your body cannot access its own fat reserves no matter how much you want it to. This is not opinion, this is physiology, because insulin is the master switch that controls fat burning. And when it's high, an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase, which is responsible for breaking down stored fat, gets shut down completely, meaning your body is physically blocked from burning fat, even if you're in a calorie deficit. That's why so many people feel stuck. They eat small meals, they snack all day, they follow the advice they've been given, and yet their body refuses to change. Because behind the scenes, insulin is being stimulated constantly, quietly preventing fat loss from ever happening. And here's the part that shocks most people. Even healthy snacks can keep you trapped in this cycle. A handful of almonds, a protein bar, a smoothie, a piece of fruit. They all trigger insulin, and when consumed frequently, they create a pattern where insulin never drops low enough for fat burning to begin. Your body is not designed to be fed every 2 hours. It is designed to experience periods of feeding and periods of fasting, times when insulin rises and times when it falls, because it is in those low insulin periods that your body switches from storing energy to burning it, and without those periods, fat loss becomes nearly impossible. Research in metabolic health has shown that frequent eating patterns are associated with higher insulin levels throughout the day, reduced fat oxidation, and increased risk of weight gain, even when total calorie intake is similar, because hormones, not just calories, determine what your body does with the food you eat. This is why someone can eat the same number of calories in 3 meals and lose weight, while another person spreads those calories across 6 or 7 eating occasions and struggles to lose anything, because in one scenario, insulin has time to fall, and in the other, it remains elevated all day long. And when insulin stays high, something else happens. Your hunger signals become distorted because insulin influences other hormones like leptin and ghrelin, the hormones that control fullness and hunger. And when this system is disrupted, you feel hungry even when your body has more than enough stored energy to fuel itself. That's why cravings feel uncontrollable, why willpower feels like it's failing, why you reach for snacks even when you know you shouldn't. Because this is not a lack of discipline, it's a hormonal imbalance driven by constant insulin stimulation. But everything changes the moment you create space between meals, the moment you stop feeding your body constantly and allow insulin to fall. Because when insulin drops low enough, your body finally unlocks access to stored fat. It begins to break it down, convert it into energy, and use it to fuel your cells exactly the way it was designed to do. This is the metabolic shift that most people never experience because they never give their body the time it needs to reach it. And this is why approaches like time-restricted eating and intermittent fasting have shown powerful results in improving insulin sensitivity, increasing fat burning, and supporting sustainable weight loss. Studies have demonstrated that extending the time between meals reduces insulin exposure, enhances metabolic flexibility, and allows the body to switch from glucose dependence to fat utilization, leading to more stable energy levels and reduced hunger over time. And perhaps the most powerful part of this transformation is what happens to your relationship with food, because when insulin is no longer constantly elevated, cravings begin to fade. Hunger becomes more predictable, and eating becomes a choice instead of a compulsion, something you control instead of something that controls you. This is when fat loss stops feeling like a battle because your body is finally working with you, not against you. And the effort you put in starts to produce real, visible results, not because you're eating less, but because your body is finally able to use what it already has stored. So the next time you feel the urge to snack, the next time you're told that eating more frequently is better for your metabolism, remember this. Every bite you take is a signal. Every snack is a hormonal message, and if those signals never stop, your body never gets the message to burn fat. Because fat loss is not just about how much you eat, it's about how often you trigger the hormone that controls fat storage. And when you reduce that frequency, when you give your body the time it needs to lower insulin, you unlock a process that has been waiting to happen all along. You don't need to starve yourself. You don't need extreme diets. You don't need to live in constant restriction. You simply need to stop overstimulating insulin and start allowing your body to do what it was designed to do, burn fat when food is not coming in. Because in the end, the problem was never that you were eating too much. It's that your body was never given the chance to burn what you already have. And once you change that pattern, once you create those windows where insulin can finally fall, everything begins to shift. Energy stabilizes, hunger calms down, fat loss accelerates, and for the first time, it feels like your body is on your side. You're not overeating, you're overstimulating insulin. And once you fix that, you don't just change your weight, you change your entire metabolism. For years, you've been told a simple story about fat loss: eat less, move more, burn more calories than you consume, and the weight will disappear. But if that were truly how the human body worked, millions of people wouldn't be struggling diets wouldn't keep failing, and you wouldn't feel like you're fighting a battle that never seems to end, because the truth is far more complex, far more powerful, and far more misunderstood. Fat loss is not just about calories, it's about hormones. Your body is not a calculator. It doesn't simply subtract calories in from calories out. It is a living, adaptive system controlled by chemical messengers that determine what happens to every bite of food you eat. And at the center of that system is one hormone that dictates whether you store fat or burn it: insulin. Insulin is often misunderstood as just a blood sugar hormone, but its real power lies in its ability to control energy storage. Because when insulin rises, your body is instructed to store energy, not release it. And when insulin remains elevated, your body becomes a storage machine holding on to fat even when you are trying desperately to lose it. This is why two people can eat the exact same number of calories and experience completely different results, because it's not just about how many calories enter the body, it's about what the body is told to do with those calories, and that decision is made hormonally, not mathematically. Scientific studies and metabolic research have shown that insulin plays a direct role in inhibiting lipolysis, the process by which stored fat is broken down and used for energy, meaning that when insulin is high, fat burning is biologically suppressed, regardless of calorie intake. And this challenges the traditional idea that a calorie deficit alone is enough to guarantee fat loss. Think about that for a moment. You could be eating less, exercising more, doing everything right according to conventional advice, and still not losing fat because your hormones are not aligned with your goals, because insulin is keeping your body locked in storage mode. And this is where frustration turns into confusion, because people begin to blame themselves. They think they lack discipline. They think they are doing something wrong, when in reality, they are following a model that ignores the most important factor in fat loss: hormonal control. Insulin is not acting alone. It interacts with a network of other hormones like leptin, which regulates fullness, ghrelin, which drives hunger, and cortisol, which responds to stress. And when this hormonal system becomes imbalanced, it creates a perfect storm where fat storage is prioritized, hunger increases, and energy decreases, making fat loss feel nearly impossible. This is why chronic dieting often backfires, because severe calorie restriction can increase stress hormones, disrupt hunger signals, and slow down metabolism, creating a state where the body fights to hold on to fat as a survival mechanism, proving that the body is not passively responding to calories, it is actively protecting itself based on hormonal signals. And perhaps the most shocking truth is that the body can adapt to lower calorie intake by reducing energy expenditure, meaning it burns fewer calories over time, making weight loss slower and harder, while maintaining high insulin levels continues to block fat burning, creating a double barrier that keeps people stuck despite their efforts. But when you shift the focus from calories to hormones, everything begins to change. Because instead of forcing the body into a deficit, you create an environment where the body naturally releases stored fat, where it chooses to burn fat because the hormonal signals allow it to. Lowering insulin becomes the key, because when insulin drops, the body is finally able to access its fat stores, to break them down, to convert them into usable energy. And this is when fat loss becomes efficient, sustainable, and aligned with how the body is designed to function. This is why dietary approaches that reduce insulin levels, such as lowering refined carbohydrates, spacing out meals, and incorporating fasting periods, have shown powerful effects on fat loss, not because they magically reduce calories, but because they change the hormonal environment that controls fat metabolism. Research has demonstrated that improving insulin sensitivity allows the body to respond more effectively to insulin, requiring less of it to manage blood sugar, which leads to lower overall insulin levels and greater access to stored fat, highlighting the importance of metabolic health over simple calorie counting. And when insulin sensitivity improves, something remarkable happens. The body becomes more flexible, more efficient, more capable of switching between burning sugar and fat, and this metabolic flexibility is the foundation of sustainable fat loss and long-term health. This is the moment where fat loss stops feeling like a constant struggle, because instead of fighting your biology, you are working with it. Instead of forcing outcomes, you are creating the conditions for those outcomes to happen naturally, and this shift changes everything. Energy levels stabilize, cravings diminish, hunger becomes manageable, and the need to constantly think about food begins to fade because your body is no longer dependent on a constant supply of incoming calories. It is finally able to use the energy it has stored. This is not about abandoning calories completely. They still matter, but they are not the primary driver of fat loss. They are part of a larger system where hormones determine how those calories are used, stored, or burned, and ignoring that system is what leads to failure again and again. So when you understand that fat loss is hormonal, not just caloric, you stop chasing quick fixes, you stop blaming yourself, and you start focusing on what truly matters, creating a hormonal environment where fat burning is possible. Because the real transformation doesn't come from eating less, it comes from changing what your body is being told to do, from shifting the signals that control your metabolism, from lowering insulin and allowing your body to access the energy it has been storing for so long. And once that shift happens, once your hormones are working in your favor, fat loss is no longer a mystery. It is no longer a struggle. It becomes a natural outcome of a body that is finally functioning the way it was designed to. Because in the end, this was never just about calories. It was about control over the signals that govern your body, control over the hormones that decide your fate. And once you take back that control, you don't just lose fat. You change your entire relationship with your body, your health, and your future.